Hi everyone, this is our channel, Meet the Real Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
Hi there. I'm Andrew and I'm 23 years old. I'm a student in a medical college. I'm studying to become a doctor because it's my lifelong dream to find a cure for cancer. I want to save people's lives from the scourge of this disease. This war became personal for me when my mom fell victim to it. Mom fainted one day and we took her to a doctor who took some x-rays and diagnosed that she had lung cancer. Eventually, she succumbed to it and passed away. After that, I swore that I would find a cure for this hateful, evil curse on mankind. I began researching every book I could find on the subject, including old medical texts and foreign research papers and journals. One ancient tomb I perused mentioned a little-known, rare herb that grows high in the Himalayan mountains in China that was said to be able to reverse the effects of cancer damage. Heartened by this discovery, I set up a small expedition to go find said herb no matter the effort and no matter the cost. I completed my preparations and enlisted the help of one of my colleagues. The journey to the base of the mountains was tiring and difficult, and the trek up the mountainside was long and arduous. Once we reached the Tibetan plateau, we began searching for this rare, wondrous herb. We queried the members of a local nomadic tribe living there for clues. Luckily, their old shaman was familiar with the herb and told us where to look. Following his directions, we found it at long last. But finding it was only part of the battle. We returned home to my lab. I then had to see if I could extract a cure from it. The research and testing would take time, money, and effort. After months and months of experimentation and trials, suffering failure after failure, I ultimately achieved success by sheer persistence and luck. I formulated a cure for cancer in my lab. What a momentous day for humanity this was. I couldn't wait to publicize my findings in the medical journals and tell the world that cancer had finally been conquered. Then just 2 days later, I received a mysterious phone call from an unknown person with a gravelly voice who threatened me with death if I were to publicize my findings. I was shocked that someone would want to block a cure for cancer at the expense of millions of cancer deaths in the years to come. And so, here I stand in my lab, unafraid and unswayed. I will publish my findings, and I will let the world know about this miracle cure. If my life should prove to be the cost of saving posterity from the continuing ravages of cancer, then so be it. I will gladly pay that cost.
My name is Nathan. I'm a 40-year-old businessman who runs an import-export company. I lived with mom and dad and my brother Sam. Some siblings coexist peacefully, some fight all the time, and some hate each other. Sam and I ended up in this latter category because our decisions shape our lives. Let me tell you our story. I worked hard and made good decisions to be successful in life. This contrasted with my lazy brother who wanted easy money without having to work for it. This was a sore point between us. We fought all the time, and the situation was exacerbated by Dad's unexpected death by heart attack. Sam and I took over Dad's business and became partners. Soon, though, Sam thought the business was too much work, so he decided to work abroad for bigger wages and less work, presumably. I begged him to work locally and stay close to the family, but he couldn't be persuaded. So he gave up his share in the business and left to work abroad, and I ran the business as sole proprietor. As I gained experience and business acumen, the business prospered and grew as I earned the customers' trust. As my profits grew, Mom and I moved into a bigger house. Mom wanted me to get married and have kids, and I wanted to make her wish come true. So I found a beautiful girl and married her. She was a blessing to us. When she became pregnant, Mom was ecstatic. We learned that it would be a baby boy, so we chose a name for him, John. As her pregnancy progressed from trimester to trimester, the strain on her body was obvious, but finally, the baby was born, and Mom and I were thrilled to see her only grandchild and my only child, respectively, growing up day by day. I wanted to teach him everything, and I wanted him to be brave. Our lives were content, peaceful, and fulfilled. At one point, I decided to grow the company by opening up some more stores. It was a challenging project, but was necessary to remain competitive with our rivals. Our wealth and good fortune continued to grow, and I bought a new villa for us. Mom, wife, and son. One evening shortly after that, we invited friends over to celebrate moving into our new villa. As we were celebrating, friends were wishing us the best. John was playing and running around everywhere and being a little naughty at times, and everything was going smoothly. Then suddenly, the lights went out for a couple of minutes, and then came back on. This was unusual, but not wanting to worry the guests, I told them that it was a normal glitch that happened once in a while. Still, as a precaution, I called for all the children to gather around me. All were present, except for John. We searched everywhere for him, but couldn't find him. We were all worried about what had happened to him. Then, one of my friends shouted that there was a phone call for me. When I took the phone, a voice on the other end said, "Don't worry about your little prince. He's okay, and he'll stay that way as long as you send us $100,000. Otherwise..." Then the caller hung up. My friends tried to calm me down, but I was frantic with worry. Who would want to kidnap my son? If I gave them the money, what assurance did I have that they would return my son? Then I got angry. They needed to be punished for this heinous deed. So I called a friend who was a police officer and asked him for help. He said he could put a small tracking device in the money bag so they could track my movements and hopefully catch these kidnap for ransom thugs. While it was a neat plan, it was also extremely dangerous if the kidnappers were to find out and escape from our trap. After a couple of days, the thugs called and told me where to meet them with the money. It was a location in the northern part of the country, a forest with dense trees and tall grass, a place that would be easy to escape into and hide. So I got the money, put it in the car, and drove to the agreed-upon meeting place. When I reached the location, a car was there waiting. I parked close to it and exited the car with the money bag in hand. The driver of the other car stepped out. It was Sam. "Sam? I thought you were working abroad," I said. "I was, but the work was too hard, so I quit and came back," Sam replied. "How can you kidnap and ransom your own nephew?" I asked. Sam laughed and said, "You misunderstand. I've just returned to take my share of the money." "What money are you talking about?" I asked. Sam sneered. "The money you took from me in running Dad's business." I tried to connect the dots. I said, "Sam, you were half owner of the business, but then you gave up your ownership to go work abroad. You haven't done anything to earn any money from the business." Sam kept sneering. "I want my share of the profits. Shut up, give me the money, and you'll get your son back." I gave him the money, he released John, and John ran into my arms crying. I asked John if Sam had hurt him, but he said no. After Sam took possession of the money, the police revealed themselves and moved in to surround us. Using a megaphone, they commanded him to surrender, but he ran into the woods instead. The policemen closed in and pursued him, but they lost him in the woods. He had escaped. I returned home with John, and my wife hugged him and cried tears of joy that he had been returned safe and unharmed. Mom asked me who did this. I hesitated. Should I tell her the truth? I decided to do so. She was horrified. A few days later, I received a letter. It was from Sam asking if I was ready for the next payment of my debt to him. I was dismayed and fearful at the same time. Sam had decided to be a villain against his own family, and I had decided to fight back against him tooth and nail. Decisions shape our lives.
Love what you do until you can do what you love. This is a famous quote that inspires people to seek out their dream job. I heard that quote at school before I graduated and entered the working world. What's that, you ask? Was I successful in achieving my dream? Well, I came this close. Let me tell you about it. My name is Max and I'm 19 years old. Poverty and I are intimate friends and constant companions. I live in one of the poorest neighborhoods in my city. Most of the local citizens work at the seaport. The rest of us, we make a living by scavenging through and collecting rubbish. But I wasn't just an ordinary rubbish collector. No, sir, I was a specialist in that field, like my dad before me. Dad taught my brothers and me how to do it expertly. This is how it worked. Factories liked to use recycled materials to reduce the cost of buying new materials, so we would go to the city rubbish pile and separate out materials into different piles, such as plastics, glass bottles, milk cartons, tin cans, and so on. Then we would sell those materials to factories for reuse in making their products. This recycling process saved the factories a ton of money, but unfortunately, that didn't translate into a ton of money for us rubbish collectors. I had a dream one day of opening my own factory and just sitting back and watching the money flow in. When I told Dad that, he told me that good fortune only happens for a select few people. After hearing those words, I went to bed and dreamed about my future factory. Little did I suspect that my dream might actually come true someday. One day after working late collecting rubbish, while on the way home, I suddenly heard voices coming from a large rubbish pile in front of my home. It seemed that people were using that pile as a place of business to sell drugs and booze. An argument was brewing between two groups. Each group were wielding sticks and knives as makeshift weapons. One guy in Group A had a gun and shot someone in Group B, so someone in Group B stabbed gun guy in Group A. After that, a full-on fight ensued, with everyone in both groups joining in the fray. Within minutes, I heard approaching police sirens, which caused the fight to break up and both groups to run away, leaving the bleeding gun guy lying on the sidewalk. I tried to help him by staunching his bleeding. As I was doing so, I noticed a lottery ticket beside him with a letter saying that it was the winning ticket for $1 million payout. I froze. I looked around. No one was watching, so I acted, somewhat ignobly. Then I left quickly. If the police were to arrive and find me with the bleeding man, they might think that I had done it. I rushed home and fell into an easy chair, taking a deep breath of relief. While I was telling Dad about what had happened, there was a knock on the door. It was the Group A and B gangs. The spokesperson for the two groups held a knife in my direction and said, "Hand over the lottery ticket or die where you stand." Needless to say, I handed it over post-haste. But then he said, "I'm sorry. You've seen too much. You have to die." I pleaded, "But I didn't see anything, I swear." Suddenly, there was a flash from a camera, and the whole group of thugs began laughing. "You've been pranked," Dad said, as he stepped out from the crowd. My brothers were behind him laughing too. "You've been pranked," Dad said, as he stepped out from the crowd. My brothers were behind him laughing too. While relieved that my imminent death had been postponed, I was deeply saddened that I had lost my $1 million chance to get my dream factory. What rubbish. Hi, I'm Kyle and I'm 24 years old. I've been a weightlifter for over 10 years. This sport runs in my blood. I used to follow the international players and imagine myself in their place. I had a fervent dream of becoming the world weightlifting champion. I've been working towards this goal ever since I was 13 years old. I've trained 5 hours a day for years with the ultimate goal of competing in the Olympic Games. I craved the fame and recognition that would grant me. One of my first early successes was winning a junior championship while representing my city. They called me the Tank due to my impressive strength. All the people around me foresaw a bright future for me. Title after title, contest after contest, my victories inevitably led me to the national championship. The winner of that championship would represent our country in the Olympics. I underwent intensive training to the exclusion of all else. I was so focused. My manager was confident that I could easily win the world championship, and I didn't want to disappoint him. The competition was fierce. I faced numerous fierce competitors, but I defeated them all and reached the final round. The only player left to challenge me was last year's champion, who had never lost a contest. The competition gradually got harder and harder until we reached the point where one of us had to break the world record to beat the other. A crucial tipping point came when I needed to lift a weight that was heavier than I had ever attempted before. There was danger in doing so, and my manager cautioned me to consider if it was worth the risk of serious injury to continue. But I was too driven to heed his warning. I had trained and waited too long for this moment. There's no turning back now. So I bent down and grasped the barbell. I sucked in a deep breath and lifted and heaved with all my might. As soon as I had lifted the weight above my head, I knew immediately that I had overestimated myself. After only a fraction of a second, I felt an excruciating pain in my backbone. A snap. I collapsed under the weight of the barbell and fell flat to the floor with the barbell across my chest, pinning me down. The pain in my back was unbearable. I felt as if I were dying. I was taken to the hospital where a doctor diagnosed that I had broken my back at the 4th and 5th vertebrae and that I would never walk again. I tried to kill myself on several occasions, not wanting to live my remaining life in a wheelchair.